Sam Leavitt leads our list of the 5 most important Sun Devils on offense for 2024.
You are Locked On Sun Devils, your daily podcast on the Arizona State Sun Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Richie Bradshaw, and I will be your guide for everything Arizona State Sun Devils. A shout out to my everydayers who are here every day, and thanks for making us your first listen of the day. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications wherever you're getting your podcast, and stay in touch with the show by following me on Twitter at RichieBrads36 and the podcast at LO_Sun Devils. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back in. Today, we are taking a look at the most important players for Sun Devils football in 2024. Now, there's going to be a Part A and Part B. Part A, of course, being offense. Part B, taking a look at the defense. And there's quite a bit that's going on here. Offensively, this is a really new-looking unit. It's a new quarterback. It's a new number one receiver. It's a lot of pieces on the offensive line. It's a new tight end position. It's a new offensive coordinator. Like, just flat out, like, just about everything that we knew from last year has a chance to be vastly different this upcoming season. But there are returning players who are going to be super duper important, just as much as there's new players that are going to be important. You can already guess who some of these guys are. We led off at the top of the show with Sam Leavitt. We'll talk about him towards the end of the podcast, but I got 5 guys that stand out to me the most. We'll start in the trenches. Leif Fautanu. Leif, first of all, friend of the podcast. I spoke with him earlier this week. If you haven't checked out that show, go check it out. Super likable guy, funny, and someone that it's just difficult to root against him. Definitely someone that I will be paying attention to this year, not just because of a relationship that I am building with him, but because he is the most important player on the offensive line. I don't think it's close. Like, sure, you need your left tackle. You need the blindside protector. You need good guard play for a team that's going to be a really run-heavy attack. You need those road graders. But everything is going to come down to the center spot. With so many new moving pieces, so many different alignments that they can have. I mean, you can look up Sun Devils depth chart, and you can see 5 different websites or 5 different people's opinions, and it's 5 different lineups, and it could be drastically different. Like, it might not be one guy that's different. It could be 4 different starters. The one consistent, however, is Leif Fautanu. He is the starting center. It's not up for debate. It's him. Now, could some guys get time? Sure. Especially considering this should be Fautanu's last season. It would be probably smart for the Sun Devils to get guys some reps. However, end all be all, Fautanu is your starter. And again, it's the continuity that he brings to your team. You know what he is, you know what he does. He is a good player. He is more than capable of anchoring the line, somebody who is growing into his role as the quarterback of the line. That's something he brought up to me on our interview on the show. He understands that it's all going to come down to him. He also brought up to me that he is going to be relied upon to kind of be the leader for the young guys. I mean, he said that one of his nicknames that the incoming kids gave him, the incoming freshmen, the redshirt freshmen, are calling him Grandpa. The reason for that is because he's a veteran player. He's an older player. He's somebody that these young guys are going to look to. And Leif knows that. He said that he wants to be able to lead by example and make it so that eventually the youngsters that are behind him are able to become grandpa one day and be what he is for this offensive line. He quarterbacks the line. He's going to be a veteran. He might be the veteran on the offensive line, too. Like, he might be the one that everybody goes to. You've got some veteran players along the line. Mark Ionacre, or not Mark, Max Ionacre, excuse me. Ben Coleman, Josh Atkins, but I think that Leif Fautanu is probably the guy that everyone's going to go to. There's also a lot of new faces here, both through the transfer portal and through the recruiting class. There's also guys that are coming back from injury. It's a lot of, I don't know if unknown is the right word per se, but it's a lot of uncertainty. You just don't know what the lineup is going to look like. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. At the end of the day, something I've said many a times, start your best five. You just need to get your best five offensive linemen out there. Leif is already one of those guys. Now it's a matter of getting the guys next to him, whether it is a bunch of freshmen or it's all veteran transfers. Doesn't matter how it looks. You just need your best guys out there. But in order for them to gel together, play as a unit at a high level, they need somebody from the interior of the line at the center spot who's going to be able to command the alignment. The guy who's going to call out, hey, 52's blitzing, whatever. You need that guy. And Fautanu is that guy. Now, for what it's worth, there are a handful of other veteran offensive linemen that I think are going to be very important. Ben Coleman, he is a former all-conference player back with the Pac-12 when he was playing at Cal. Transfers to ASU last year, misses the season due to a injury that required surgery. He is back. He is healthy. He is, in theory, he's your best offensive lineman. Hopefully that ends up being the case. Another guy that I've really hyped up is Jalen Clem. Clem, the transfer from Washington. Washington had the Joe Moore Trophy last year for the best offensive line in the country. There are definitely expectations on him. There is the hope that you can plug and play him somewhere. With my logic of start your best five, he can be right tackle, he can be left guard, he can be left tackle, whatever. Just get him out there. I have expectations for him. Josh Atkins, another guy. He's transferring from Hawaii. He's got left tackle experience. Look, I've said many times on this show, Bram Walden, one of my favorite guys on the offensive line. But I think we need to go in with the assumption that the veteran Josh Atkins, who has been able to stay healthy, is probably the starting left tackle. I'm still a big Bram Walden fan. That's not going away. But for right now, I think we need to work under the assumption that Josh Atkins is the starting tackle until further notice, which obviously is going to place a little bit of stress on him because he needs to be the keystone at left tackle and the guy who's keeping up Sam Leavitt. It's a very important position. We all know that. Emmett Boley, someone else that I would throw in there. Max Ionacre, someone else I would throw in there. I don't know what a fair expectation is for some of the youngsters, but I know that there's guys who are going to be hungry to play. A lot of guys on the offensive line are important for sure. The most important guy on the offensive line, however, is Leif Fautanu. Now we're going to move on and we're going to take a look at a stacked running back position next. That's got two very important players. This is the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Game Time makes getting NBA final tickets even faster and easier. Prices on Game Time will actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seats, and the lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. You can save up to 60% off buying last-minute tickets for sports, concert, comedy, theater, and any other events that you can find. You can save more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event. You can try the zone deals where you save even more when you choose a section and Game Time chooses the seats. There's a toggling feature that'll show you the total upfront, so there's no surprise fees at checkout. You can get a panoramic view of your seat in the app before you buy. And their lowest price guarantee means that you'll be credited 110% of the difference if you find tickets in the same section and row for less. And of course, your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Wherever you're getting those podcasts, hit like, subscribe, turn on notifications. I appreciate you guys for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. And a special shout out to my everydayers who are here every day. Running back. It's loaded. This is pound for pound, arguably the best position on the team. I can't remember if I gave the edge to running back or safety. Running back is certainly the deepest, most talented position on offense. As I'm thinking about it, I still don't know which one I would pick because safety is so stacked. But we'll talk about safety. Right now, we're talking about running back. And I got two running backs here that I think are some of the most important players for the Sun Devils' success in 2024. We'll start with the obvious. The man I have dubbed as the people's running back, Cameron Skattebo. Mr. Skattebo is Mr. Do-It-All. He runs the football. He catches the football. He passes the football. He punts the football. Just put it in his hands, whether it is actually doing something with his legs, whether it's tossing the ball or on special teams. Because I'm sure he could return it too if we asked him to be a punt return or kick return guy. Put the ball in his hands, good things happen. When Skattebo plays good things happen. And he has so many different attributes that he brings. Like he's not just like you got to get him the ball for the sake of just throwing him the ball. He is a crafty receiver. He had an over 60-yard touchdown reception last year. He is more than a capable receiver. Okay, well, what about as a runner? Well, he can do a little bit of everything. He is quicker than people would think. He is more agile than people would think. I know a lot of people look at Skattebo, and there's stereotypes that can be thrown around. You can make the assumption for yourself as to what those stereotypes are. But, man, he can cut on a dime. He can absolutely just plant his foot, and a guy will just be put on skates. It's special, the way that he runs the football, the way he catches the football. And again, the fact that he does a little bit of everything for you. Last year, Skattebo was probably the most important player on this team because he was one of the few guys who could stay healthy and someone who contributed in 4 different ways. You just don't see that, which is why he was absolutely robbed of is it the Bronco Nagurski trophy? I can't remember if it's Nagurski or not, for the nation's most versatile player. Like Travis Hunter, I get it, but Travis Hunter did it 2 ways. Skattebo did it 4. Last I checked, 4 is more than 2. Neither here nor there. The fact that Skattebo does so many different things for you and does them well makes him arguably the most important player, period, for the Sun Devils. Offense, defense, special teams. Now, his running mate, Raleek Brown, is another guy that I have very high on my list of some of the most important players on the Sun Devils offense in 2024. The transfer from USC, former 5-star recruit or a super high 4-star, depending on where you look. He is it. He is all that in a bag of chips. This is a spark plug, somebody who you put the football in his hands. I know I just said this about Skattebo, but in a much different way. because where Skattebo is really quick, Raleek has track speed, and that's a different animal. You can be football fast, which is Skattebo, but then there's that 4.3 running fast, just blowing by guys. That's Raleek Brown. It's a new element to the game for the Sun Devils offense. They didn't really have that really long runner in the backfield last year. Skattebo, good speed. DeCarlos Brooks, good power. Caleb Black, good power. Didn't really have that home run threat. Raleek Brown is that home run threat. You could put the ball in his hands, and it feels like in an instant, he turns out a 20-yard game. He turns out a 30-yard game, 40, 50. There is that capability with Raleek Brown. This is also a player, keep in mind, that understands the role he is inheriting at Arizona State. He has said as much himself that he wants to be the guy you look back on in 5 years, 10 years, however long, at the Kenny Dillingham era, and you go, man, when they turned that program around, Raleek Brown was one of the most important players. He wants to be the face of this program. If that's the expectation you're setting for yourself, then I would tell you that you are arguably the most important player on this team heading into the year. That expectation alone. Now, beyond expectations, he's also Mr. Do-It-All. He can run it because he's a running back. He can catch it. And his ability as a receiver is what really intrigues me. At USC, they used him as a receiver, almost, I wouldn't say exclusively as a receiver, but he got a lot of like slot work, and he was good. He just didn't get on the field as much as others because Lord knows USC was just stacked at the receiver spot. It's difficult to get on the field at that point. It's nothing against Raleek Brown. He comes to Arizona State, and there is an opportunity for him to seize a very big role for the team, for him to seize a starting role for the team. Raleek Brown is just that capable of a player where he can do everything, and he can do it with probably the highest ceiling of any guy on this team. As a receiver, he can just burn you. As a runner, bounce it outside, you're not going to catch him. Although in spring ball, he did a lot of work running in between the tackles and looked equally as good. Then there's the return ability. Now, I don't know how the returner situation is going to look for ASU. Javen Jacobs is gone. Elijah Badger is gone. Melcon Stovall is back, and they are definitely going to use him. Beyond that, ASU doesn't really have a returning ace right now for punt returns or kick returns. Raleek Brown could plug into that role. You could throw him in on punt returns, and all of a sudden he takes this thing in and whoop, makes the guy miss, and then boom, 20-yard pickup, 30-yard pickup, 40-yard house call, 50-yard house call. It's that kind of player that you just feel every time he touches the football, it could turn into something big. With Skattebo, every time he touches it, something good's going to happen. With Raleek, when he touches the football, something great could happen. I don't know that he's as consistent as Skattebo because there's just few guys that have come through this program that you just look at them and you go, yeah, I'm going to give you the ball 20 times, and I know that you're going to be successful 18 of those times. Raleek, who knows? What I do know is that this is Mr. Big Play. I would argue he might be the most explosive big play player on the team. But there is another guy that I do think is every bit as explosive, maybe even a little more explosive, We're going to talk about him in a moment as one of the most important players on the team, followed by Sam Leavitt. This is the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. One more time, a shout out to my everydayers who are here every day, and thanks for making us your first listen of the day. Hit like, hit subscribe, turn on notifications wherever you're getting your podcasts. Let's round it out. 2 more players. I said Raleek Brown could be the most explosive player on the team. There is one other player that I would argue is perhaps more explosive. That is Jordyn Tyson. Jordyn Tyson was someone that when he transferred to ASU last offseason, if you guys were here, you'll remember I was stupidly high on him. And it wasn't fair because he was recovering from injury. And it didn't stop me from hyping this kid up. Well, he is healthy now. And we're going to do it again. We're going to hype him up again. Because Jordyn Tyson might be wide receiver 1 on this team. He is every bit of what you look for in a number 1 receiver. He's got the size. He's 6'2", 6'3". He's close to 200 pounds. I'm not sure if he's north of that. He's flirting with 4.3 speed for sure. He's a good receiver, and he's a really good punt returner. If you remember 2 years ago against Colorado when we were out in Boulder, he had a 80-plus yard touchdown reception and an 80-yard-plus punt return touchdown against ASU. He does it. He does it both. Having that number 1 receiver is going to be so crucial for ASU this year because you just lost Elijah Badger. Badger's gone. Badger was your number 1 receiver the last 2 years. Badger was one of the most talented receivers you've had in the last 5 years, maybe the last 10. He's gone. What do you do now? You've got a bevy of options to look at. I love Troy O'Mary. I love Jake Smith. I'm big on Melcon Stovall. Not Troy O'Mary. I already said him. Xavier Guillory is still there. You got the young kids like Caleb Black, Corbin Hendricks. There's more than enough guys here that will get your attention. More than enough guys that you can feel confident in to provide big plays for you, to provide stability at the wide receiver position. But Jordyn Tyson, he's just cut from a different cloth. You look at the other receivers on this team, and they don't have near the upside that Tyson does. And I'm big on this receiver room. But Tyson is just different. It's not coachable. The skills that he has to be able to beat defenses and special teams as a straight line runner. This is another dude who, I don't know if he's Raleek Brown fast, because I think Raleek Brown is stupid fast. But Tyson is very, very fast. It's not like he's worlds behind Raleek Brown. He's a good player. And what was really impressive during spring ball is he wasn't just beating defensive backs with speed. There was cutting in his route running where he was able to fake out the defensive back. There was a play I can think of where he just mossed a guy. I can't remember who the DB was. He just went up and took it. Like, it's there. If he's able to tap into the potential that is there for him, sky's the limit. I would not put it past Tyson to have one of the best seasons of the last 5 to 10 years for ASU. I would not be surprised if this was a 1,000-yard receiver. I would not be surprised if he's not 1,000 yards, if he's north of 16 yards per reception, maybe gets a handful of touchdowns. As long as he stays healthy, he's dialed in, and he lives up to the potential he has. Not just my opinion on the potential. This is consensus that a lot of people are high on him. He's gonna be great. he is going to be great. Now we'll round out the podcast with Sam Leavitt. Teased him at the top of the show. We all know Sam Leavitt is playing the most important position in all of sports, quite frankly, quarterback. He is having to replace Jaden Rashada, who was a former four-star recruit in the same cycle, the 2023 cycle, who decided to transfer out of the program after he lost the job to Sam Leavitt. Well, pressure's on. Leavitt has quite a bit to live up to. Not shoes to fill. Because last year, quarterback between all four guys wasn't great. But he's got expectations to be able to lead this offense. And I don't really know what's a fair expectation. I don't know if you can put a stat line on it. I don't know if you can put quarterback wins in, which, by the way, QB wins are not a stat. I don't know how you measure the success of Sam Leavitt. If you go 6-6 and he has more touchdowns than interceptions, I feel like that's successful, but there may be people that look at that and they go, well, he's underwhelming. Maybe he goes 8 wins and 20 plus touchdowns. At that point, he definitely surpasses the expectations, but what the expectations look like from a case-to-case basis, from Richie Bradshaw to Joe Schmo to Jane Doe to whoever, I think it's going to look different. But I think the one consistent thing here is that he is expected to be the starting quarterback. He is expected to be the guy. He's the quarterback. He's got weapons around him. He's got Cameron Skattebo. He's got Jordyn Tyson, Raleek Brown, 3 of the most important players that I highlighted here. He's got a bevy of running backs, a bevy of receivers. There's some talented tight ends here. Marqueston Douglas, my guy Jaden Fortier. There's a lot here to work with. And it's an offensive line that should be much improved, especially if the health is there. With a new offensive coordinator, Marcus Arroyo, to be instilled on his team. With a offensive guru head coach in Kenny Dillingham. There will be expectations for Sam Leavitt to play good football. What those expectations look like, I don't know. I don't know if it's just going to be wins. Because if he throws X amount of yards and X amount of touchdowns, but ASU only wins 3 games again, I don't know if that's living up to expectations per se. If ASU wins 7 games, 8 games, but he didn't play well, is that living up to expectations? I don't know what's a fair expectation for a guy who didn't get very much playing time last year at Michigan State and is now on a brand new team at Arizona State. But the one thing I do know is he looks capable, he looks good, he looks like somebody that is potentially the face of your program. I'm excited for Sam Leavitt. But again, for the 100th time, I do not know what the expectations look like for him. All I know is he's going to be a very important player for the Sun Devils, offensively, defensively. What do you guys think? What are your expectations for Sam Leavitt? Who else is some of the most important players on the offensive side of the ball? Did I get it right? Did I miss someone? Let me know in the comments, or you can hit me up on Twitter at RichieBrants36, the podcast at LO_Sun Devils. But wherever you're getting your shows, hit like, subscribe, turn on notifications so you get an update when new content pops up for you. A shout out to my everydayers who are here every day, and thanks for making us your first listen of the day. We will be back tomorrow with a special edition of the podcast as I introduce you guys to incoming freshman Champ Westbrooks. Champ is a very nice young man, someone who was very impressive I think you guys are going to like him. I think you're going to enjoy the interview. We even asked him some fun questions like LeBron or Jordan. So tune in, see his answers, and get to know Champ Westbrooks tomorrow. I'll see you then. Till next time, you keep it locked right here on Locked On Sun Devils.